Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our very valued attendees for the Info-OB Global Virtual Summit 2022. I am Dr. Wajid Hussain. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Info-OBE, and we'd like to welcome you today to our topic, Digital Technology to Foster Lifelong Learning Skills. Uh, this is a very crucial topic because we looking very seriously into hybrid learning, digital technology to fulfill our requirements for remote learning, which became quite necessary during the COVID pandemic. However, there are some crucial aspects of implementing digital technology to achieve holistic education, to achieve authentic paradigm and principles of OBE. So let me start with basically the need for recognizing uh, the changing landscape of the global market, of industry, of communities, of the whole world in general. So we see a major shift happening in economies, and economies moving from even resource-based to complex combinations of resource and human, skills. And so what now is very recognized is the value that economies are given to something which is called as human capital. So we're moving out from capital that just includes assets, tangible benefits and tangible assets to human capital to improve health, to enhance individual and community life, to increase productivity in earnings, all of those. So the landscape of economies in the globe is changing, and we have some data from the International Labor Organization. You see here the populations moving from rural to urban areas. We have a great shift in demographies. We have a composition of employment changing from agriculture industry to a larger composition of services. So there's a lot happening. And if you look at technologies that are to be adopted by 2025, cloud computing, big data, encryption, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, all the way to quantum computing. So this is from a very good source, the World Economic Forum. Of course, you can get a more latest picture. So you see a very changing landscape over here. So in this changing landscape, there are job roles that are decreasing in demand, and there are job roles that are increasing in demand. So there's a dynamic situation creating in global markets. And going back to that, how prepared are we to take care of graduates who are basically, are they geared up to have those emerging skills or not? And do they have these necessary skills that are going to place them in these jobs of the coming future? So we're talking about both technical skills and transversal skills. And today we're focusing on lifelong learning. I specifically like to focus on Michael Megara's 2015 work on lifelong learning. And he's basically categorized uh, broadly into three major areas. So lifelong learning is categorized to uh, self-management, to student thinking, and social interaction. Now, what that means is collectively, lifelong learning skills are means by which students master academic content and translate knowledge into action. So there's supposed to be some multi-dimensional aspect of lifelong learning that we can look into and target for pedagogy, target for assessment, target for content, curriculum, so that we can enhance these skills and so on. So that's what Michael McGirra has over here, self-management. So building the mind cells, developing motivation, developing conscientiousness, self-regulation. This is crucial to attaining lifelong learning. Uh, Developing creativity, innovation, critical thinking, student thinking, all of that, problem solving, all of that goes into the student thinking capabilities. And then we have social interaction, emotional skills, social values, and teamwork. And when you put all of these three dimensions together, you can create the right formula to attain lifelong learning skills. So let's go further and look into acquiring lifelong learning skills. Now let's look into student thinking. How could you develop student thinking? Well, there could be curriculum aspects, instructional strategies, assessment, and improving the quality of educational systems and processes. And I'm going to cover this briefly because we will be focusing more on the digital technology aspect in this particular presentation. And if you look at self-management, we are looking into metacognition, self-discipline, perseverance, and academic advising. Academic advising can help students a great deal in all of these aspects. And then social and emotional skills, internships, which includes teamwork, developing, professional ethics. Internships would help tremendously with co-ops and other industrial training programs, for instance. Any other kinds of uh, training, vocational training, where students can actually get into a sort of real work environment and absorb the culture and the codes that are implemented in a real work environment. So we're talking about collaboration, values, standards, and codes. So uh, with our expert opinion, uh, we look into four major areas for integrating skills into education. Number one is an accurate learning model. So when you talk about a learning model, it goes all the way to even national qualification systems, which include national qualification frameworks. Now, national qualification frameworks are tied up with accreditation, and accreditation criteria comes from the national qualification framework. So national qualification frameworks need to incorporate uh, clearly the lifelong learning skills aspect. Some of the problems with the recent versions of national qualification frameworks are they are very comprehensive. All kind of learning pathways are covered and all levels. But what we recommend from an assessment and learning standpoint is it should rather be sectoral. It should clearly define the learning domains with their learning levels, because without the learning levels, you can't have progression. And, and you need to have the language from which you can develop curriculum, you can develop content. So those are the changes that we need in national qualification frameworks. We have countries that select teamwork and leadership. So what we use is called learning domains wheel with Venn diagrams. And we see that actually teamwork is a superset and leadership is a subset of teamwork. So when you use two domains, when a country uses two learning domains where one is a subset and one is a superset, that creates a problem for coverage of learning. That creates a problem for assessment. That creates a problem for evaluation and improvement, because one specific attribute or learning domain is completely contained in another. So we had another country that used numeric skills and problem solving. But if you go to the scientific disciplines, so engineering and technical disciplines, all of the problem solving is based on numeric skills. So that creates a redundancy and it becomes problematic. So you need to have sectoral uh, national qualification frameworks with very, very specific domains and learning levels for that specialization in that sector. You need to have learning levels clearly defined, very similar to the learning levels of Bloom's, but uh, the Bloom's cognitive is very universal. But when you look at the affective domain or you look at the psychomotor, those could change quite a bit. So that's one thing, learning more. And then instruction strategy. You need to develop the right kind of instruction strategy, whether it's problem-based or project-based or format or gauge and burden model or any of those. You need to have a clear specification of what the right strategies are. And then educational systems need to have a quality improvement process in place. What that means is quality cycles, plan to check act quality cycles, quality assurance, quality control, quality standards, which are the student outcomes, program outcomes, and the performance indicators. Has to be all structural. And all of these have to be regulated at different phases of education with different processes, and the inputs regulated and the outputs target, and watching for variation, for defects and fixing them. So those quality improvement processes have to be in place. But now integrating all of these is not possible manually. So you have to get the right kind of digital technology. Now, let's say I grabbed some of these lifelong learning skills. I took some of the problem solving, and I took some of the critical thinking aspects and maybe collaboration. And now I want to put them into curriculum. I have to also align with my quality agency. It could be AACSB, it could be the International Engineering Alliance, it could be for maybe any other specialization of humanities or sciences. So you refer to the quality agency graduate profile. I know, like for Washington Accord and the Sydney Accord and Dublin Accord, these are the engineering profiles, but we have very nice range of problem solving. We have knowledge profiles, we have competency profiles. So we can combine those with the emerging skills that we see in employment reports like the World Economic Forum. That's item number 1 and item number 2. Combine them together, create those real outcomes, structured outcomes. The structured outcomes are very important. If you don't have structured outcomes, you cannot achieve the mastery learning going from low order skills to high order skills. So you see here, we identify some courses. Let's say I want to put in some communication aspects and want them to proceed from introductory courses 200 level to reinforced courses 300 level and to mastery courses 400 level. And I want to go from elementary skills, then intermediate skills and advanced skills. So I have to plug those into the outcomes of those courses and create a link. So the whole curriculum has to actually connect with each other. So when I do that kind of plugging and I know what outcomes I'm talking about at the course level, at the program level, then I can make that whole sequence, and I know the evaluation and assessment and continuous improvement that happens later on. All of that makes sense, and they're connected. Without that picture, it's an ad hoc approach, it's an incorrect approach, and a lot of reverse engineering is done. Curriculums are built without this concept at all, and then they just jump into the assessment aspects and evaluation aspects, and they just create arbitrary outcomes at the course level or perhaps maybe even the program level. So that's what we're talking about. We talked about learning progression, going from low order skills to high order skills. These are the 3 domains of Bloom's, and you see how we go from the lower levels. If you look into the cognitive, there's 6 levels: effective, Fatwell, Bloom, Messier model. That's 2001, and you see it has like what 5 levels. The psychomotor domain Simpson model, 7 levels. That's 1972. Sorry, the cognitive domain, the modified is Patwell Anderson, 2001, and then you have the affective domain. So you go from low levels cognitive remembering all the way to creating. So you have to create that learning progression and put it into curriculum for the curriculum to work spontaneously. Then you need to have a structure of outcomes. Now, this is the inverted pyramid. It's quite famous. It's what we developed a few years ago. If you look into that, you have the program goal. The goals don't have any verbs. They are in future tense. They don't have context. These are key differences. Program course objectives are program-centered, teacher-centered, intentions, ambitions, goals of the program and the teacher. They don't contain verbs. They have future tense, and there's no real performance scales and domains of learning. It's still very broad. But when you come to student or course outcomes, then the language contains verbs. Then there is a nominal context there, like what are the students working on? And there's an object of demonstration, like what are they going to produce, a report? So the whole language comes in. But still, they don't have the details of performance scales. The details of performance scales come down later into performance indicators, and you see the inverted pyramid, there's more specificity in the bottom, and it gets more and more broad as you go further up. So with performance indicators, you can actually point out what is the learning domain. You see on the left-hand side, you have performance indicators indexed electronically. So you see cognitive evaluating. Sometimes we have professors, they do not know the difference between evaluation and analysis. And I've seen that several times wherein they're writing outcomes and they're thinking it's actually evaluation, but it's in fact analysis. So there's a need for developing the understanding of these classifications and programming all of the outcomes structured in a systematic way so that progression can happen. So now, in lifelong learning, we're just going to look into metacognition. Metacognition is knowing what you know. So a simple quiz or homework like this could help develop metacognition skills. Metacognition is one of the most effective instruction strategies. So here, what do you currently know about a certain topic? Let's say active filters. What do you already know about this? And then what kind of voluntary, self-motivated learning will you take up? That will give you the learning, the learning that you're deficient in. So that's point number 2 here. Provide details of all possible sources you plan to utilize for comprehensive learning related to this topic. So you will get maximum credit if you adopt multiple resources and steps or techniques to enhance learning. And part 3 is now, once you've completed that exercise, what do you know about this particular topic, component, or process? Then part number 4, write a conclusion of not more than 100 words describing your learning experience. Provide a list of references utilized in conducting research on a given topic. Why have you selected the referred sources to complete your research? Which sources were the most effective and beneficial in acquiring additional learning? So you have a beautiful rubric here. So you need all of these to integrate these skills into learning. So this is a very simple sample of how you can bring in metacognition into perspective. And this is another course, which is a capstone design course. And we have basically created this whole course with outcomes. We also received some national awards and made several international presentations. So every part of this course is lifelong learning, from concept, from problem definition and research, literature review. You're talking about proposals for the project. You're talking about design concept development, then using a multiple choice, multi-decision making algorithm called the PUG method to select which concept is better out of the two. And then you go for report generation, you develop a mathematical model, then you develop a simulation model, then you develop the manufacturability aspect. So all of them with rubrics, and then evaluating manufacture, even procurement, manufacturability, you're talking procurement of materials, procurement of consultation, knowledge, and you're talking about multiple other aspects in in procurement of manufacturability. Then you go to manufacturing, prototyping, and evaluating the prototype for sustainability, for environmental constraints, for societal constraints, and for functional and safety and health matters. So all of these aspects, this whole course of 2 modules is a fantastic, you could say, mechanism of developing lifelong learning capabilities. You see here a simple system of developing an outcome. This is the mathematical model, developing the rubric, and from the rubric, developing the assessment schedule. You have the scores on the left side, you have description of all the scales: excellent, adequate, minimal, and satisfactory. I'm not going to go into details of that. And then the digital technology to implement this, because imagine if you have hundreds of skills and you have thousands of students and several terms, you need the right technology to capture all this. And you could do that with technology, but manually you could never do it. So you need the technology which has the right theoretical frameworks, authentic OBE frameworks. It can measure all students. Then you have the actual conceptual frameworks. Are you going to use weighting factors? Are you going to do pure averaging? Most of the mistakes that most of the programs do are pure averaging. They take apples, oranges, and put everything together. No, you cannot take understanding skills and mix them with creating. You have to put understanding skills separately and compute them separately and evaluate them. You have to take the psychomotor skills separately. You have to take the affective separately. So all of that has to be done by the right kind of technology. And a quality improvement process. We have 6 cycles here. Every cycle regulates a certain process. If you look at quality 1 cycle, it's the design of courses and developing the course outcomes for the exact learning activities, the target learning activities. And if you look at quality cycle 2, it's implementing this consistently throughout the semester. If you look at quality cycle 3, it's doing a program level evaluation at the end of the term, creating actions. If you look at quality cycle 4, you look at the performance indicators, review them after 3 years, do benchmarking and change them if you have to. If you look at quality cycle 5, you do multi-term trend analysis. You collect outcomes for 5 years and see how the program is actually moving forward. So without doing this, you're not going to get quality. So we need digital technology with 4 essential elements: learning management systems, so if you integrate all of these together, you get what is called the integrated quality management system. And it's basically, the focus here is the continuous improvement management system, wherein you have evaluations happening based on outcomes. You recognize some outcomes have failed, but then what do you do with those failures? Can you actually do a root cause failure analysis? Can you get to the understanding of what was the cause of failure? When you identify that, you have to assign an action, but to whom? Who's responsible for that? And for how much time? Is it urgent? Does it have to be solved real time? Should it take 2 weeks? Should it take 4 months? Should it take a year? So all of that can be specified in the continuous improvement management system. So let me show you that screen here. You see here, this is an index of action items. You see an electronics action item index. It indicates to whom it's been assigned, and it's based on outcomes evaluation. And it tells you whether it's open or closed. It tells you the level of urgency. Is it medium priority? Is it normal? Is it urgent? It tells you the meeting minutes. You can, in a click, open the meeting minutes from where it was originally generated. So this is millions of documents that programs actually maintain manually. So you could get that happen in a moment, in a fly, in a few seconds. You could go down from program level information to student level. So with this, hundreds and thousands of CQI actions are basically available in a matter of seconds. So the other thing is academic advising. If you capture information on every student accurately with a faculty course assessment report and performance vectors, the OBE principle is all students can learn. But how can all students learn even if you don't have the data for all students? So with the faculty course assessment report and performance vectors, you can calculate and collect information on every student. So you see on the left-hand side here, program level outcomes for every student. for multi-terms, and you can bingo click one of them, like SO1 on problem solving. On the right hand side, you get all the performance indicators. You can click on one and get the assignments. You can click on the assignment, get the scores for that. And you can basically click on the course and you go to the course portfolio. You can open the course portfolio and you can look into the comments of the faculty. What were the comments on the faculty for that particular failure? And you could develop a beautiful advising mechanism. You see the reports here, and you see over here, based on outcomes, you can give advising based on outcomes. So with this, I'd like to conclude. There's much more. I'm giving you a tip of the iceberg, and we are open to a lot of other aspects regards to communication and development of this kind of technology to implement OBE in institutions that are interested. And thank you very much for joining us in this particular presentation, and we hope to see you further. Good day.